Imagine driving down the highway at like 80 miles an hour.
Okay, a little fast, but I'm with you.
Right. But your car's dashboard has 500 different blinking lights on it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a nightmare.
It really is. You have absolutely no idea if you're, running out of gas, if the engine is about to explode, or if your headlights are just on.
You're just totally blind to what actually matters.
Exactly. And that chaotic, terrifying scenario is actually how a surprising number of Fortune 500 companies attempt to run their business strategies today.
Well, that's true. It happens all the time.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. If you're listening to this, you're probably someone who wants to understand the actual inner workings of business without getting bogged down in all the corporate jargon.
Which there's a lot of.
Oh, so much. So today's mission, we're cutting through that noise. We're looking at a fascinating stack of research on supply chains and strategy, and we're specifically zooming in on performance monitoring systems.
Right. How organizations actually take those lofty framed corporate visions and translate them into cold, hard data.
Because having a great business strategy is totally useless if you have no way to measure if it's, well, actually working. Exactly. So we're exploring why measuring everything is a trap, how top-tier companies filter out the noise, and how frameworks like the Balanced Scorecard and ScoreDS actually function in the real world. And to help connect all these strategic dots, I've got our resident expert here.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's an incredibly vital translation process we're talking about today. Because in a world of absolute information overload, giving a management team 500 blinking lights is just a recipe for operational paralysis.
Right.
True competitive advantage comes from identifying and measuring only the things that actually matter.
Okay, so let's unpack this. How do we move from the abstract idea of like having a great strategy to the quantifiable reality of a performance monitoring system?
Well, at its core, any functional monitoring system really needs three distinct elements to work.
Yeah.
First, you need the performance criterion.
The criteria.
Yeah, that is the actual metric, the specific thing you are measuring. Second, you have to establish a performance standard, which is the concrete target you are aiming for.
Okay, so the metric, then the target.
Right. And third, you need the actual measurement, the real-world data you are pulling in to compare against that standard.
So when we talk about that performance criterion, the metric itself, we're dealing with KPIs, right? Key performance indicators.
We are, yeah. And KPIs can be financial-like, looking at revenue growth or profit margins.
Sure.
Or they can be non-financial, like tracking customer satisfaction scores or maybe production defect rates. But the golden rule of the KPI is that it must have a direct, undeniable linkage to the organization's strategic priorities.
You can't just pick a metric because it's easy.
Exactly. You cannot just pick a metric because your software makes it easy to track. It has to reflect the overarching mission.
And I imagine that mission has to be filtered down, right? Like the CEO doesn't need to look at the same dashboard as the warehouse supervisor.
That is a critical distinction. Strategic metrics belong to the executives. Tactical metrics are utilized by middle management to allocate resources. And operational metrics are tracked daily or even hourly by the people on the floor doing the physical work.
This connects directly to what the research calls the integrated measurement model, turning that big picture vision into actionable, smart goals.
Right. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Right. Smart goals.
The integrated measurement model is what creates that alignment. When every tier of the business has SMART goals, teams know exactly what they're accountable for. It even allows management to run, like, what-if profitability analyses.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you can mathematically model if a proposed change makes financial sense before you spend a single dime executing it.
But hold on, let me push back on this for a second. We keep talking about filtering the noise, right?
Yeah.
But doesn't more data fundamentally equal more visibility?
You would think so, but
Like, if I have the technology to track all 500 of those blinking lights across my entire supply chain, why shouldn't a company just try to measure absolutely everything?
what's fascinating here is that trying to measure everything actually creates a massive behavioral trap.
Real?
Yeah, it actively destroys visibility by creating departmental silos. If you hand every single department a massive, isolated list of operational metrics to maximize, well, human nature takes over.
Meaning they just look out for themselves.
Exactly. They will inevitably start maximizing their own numbers at the direct expense of other departments.
Wait, so if I'm tracking, say, delivery speed as a core metric, my warehouse manager might just spend an absolute fortune on overnight air shipping for every single package just to hit their personal target.
There's a perfect example. The warehouse manager hits their operational KPI, they look great on paper, and they probably get a fat bonus.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the finance department is looking at the transportation budget and pulling their hair out because profit margins have just been totally obliterated.
So the operations team wins, but the company loses.
It happens constantly with inventory, too. Operations might have a metric to lower the cost per unit produced. The easiest way to achieve that is to run the manufacturing machines nonstop, creating these massive continuous batches of product.
Right, economies of scale. But doing that creates a mountain of safety stock.
Exactly.
Which means all the company's cash is suddenly tied up in boxes just sitting on a warehouse shelf.
And suddenly, finance can't fund new projects. Operations literally ruin finance's KPIs by hoarding inventory just to make their own efficiency numbers look good.
Man. So what does this all mean? If measuring isolated metrics causes internal warfare between departments, how do you fix it? Because you can't just stop measuring things.
No, you don't stop measuring, but you force the organization to look at the business holistically. You need a framework that prevents one department from succeeding by sabotaging another.
Which naturally leads us to the entire philosophy behind the balanced scorecard.
Right. The balanced scorecard was designed specifically to break down those silos. It forces leadership, usually the CEO and the executive team, to view the organization through 4 competing, interconnected lenses simultaneously.
Okay, let's build out a scenario using the specific examples from our source material, because I think it really illustrates how these lenses fight against each other.
Let's do it.
Let's say our CEO is focused purely on the first lens, the financial perspective. They want to keep costs down. So the goal is maintaining low finished goods inventory, and the metric is the carrying cost of that inventory. The target is strict. Keep carrying costs under $50,000.
Okay, so if the company only looks at that financial lens, they will slash inventory to the bone to hit that 50K target. But if they do that, what happens when a customer places an unexpected order?
They won't have the product available.
Exactly. They stock out.
Right, which means they have to look at the second lens, the customer perspective. How do our customers see us? The CEO sets a goal for reliable delivery. The metric is orders delivered in full, and the uncompromising target is 99%.
And instantly, you have introduced conflict.
A huge tension. How on earth does a company hit a 99% perfect delivery target without stockpiling massive amounts of safety stock and completely blowing past that $50,000 financial limit?
That tension is the genius of the system.
Really?
Yeah, it isn't a flaw. It is exactly why it's called a balanced scorecard. It forces management into critical thinking and intentional trade-offs. To hit both of those targets, you can't rely on brute force hoarding. You have to become operationally superior.
Which brings in the third lens, the business process perspective. What must the company excel at internally to hit both the financial and the customer goals?
Right. To deliver flawlessly without holding excess inventory, your manufacturing processes have to be perfect. You can't afford mistakes. So the goal becomes eliminating waste. The metric tracks the number of units that require rework, and the target is 0 units. Absolute perfection in the process.
0 rework. But to get 0 rework, your people have to be incredibly skilled.
Exactly.
Which introduces the fourth and final lens, the innovation and learning perspective. How does the company continue to improve? The goal is to build a flexible workforce. The metric tracks the percentage of employees who are cross-trained on different jobs, aiming for a target of 50%.
Notice how they all cascade into one another.
Yeah, they do.
You need cross-trained, skilled people. That's the learning perspective. To achieve 0 rework in your business processes. That flawless process allows you to hit the 99% customer delivery target, which ultimately ensures you don't need excess safety stock, satisfying that $50,000 financial constraint.
It's actually brilliant. The scorecard ensures that cross-functional alignment is basically the only path to success. You can't cheat the system.
You really can't.
But, here's the limitation I'm seeing. The balanced scorecard is fantastic for looking inside the 4 walls of a single company.
Right.
But what happens when the problem isn't inside your building? What happens when your supplier's supplier, like across the globe, suddenly goes bankrupt? The scorecard can't see that far.
It can't, because modern supply chains extend far beyond a single facility. They're vast, interconnected global webs. So to measure performance across that entire network, the industry had to zoom out and create a much broader standard.
Enter ScoreDS. the Supply Chain Operations Reference Digital Standard.
It is the ultimate diagnostic tool for global commerce.
Yeah.
Its scope covers everything from the moment a customer enters an order, all the way through the manufacturing, the shipping, and finally down to the paid invoice.
The visual model for ScoreDS is so fascinating. It uses this double infinity symbol.
It's very distinct.
When you look at it, it sounds less like a straight pipeline from point A to point B and more like a massive circulatory system. You have your organization right in the center and these interlocking infinity loops stretching out in both directions. To the left, product pumps out to your customer and loops further out to your customer's customer. To the right, it loops back to your supplier and their suppliers. But I have to ask, why represent it as a double infinity loop instead of just a straight line? It sounds like a plot device from a sci-fi movie.
It really does. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the shift from a linear line to that double infinity loop represents a fundamental realization about global trade. Supply chains are not linear. They're continuous end-to-end supply networks.
Networks, not chains.
Right. Materials flow forward, but information and capital flow backward. Products get returned, packaging gets recycled. It is a system of perpetual motion.
And right in the center, acting as the brain of this whole circulatory system, ScoreDS places a core process called orchestrate.
Orchestrate is the overarching management strategy. It integrates all the other operational processes that sit on those infinity loops. Plan, order, source, transform, fulfill, and return.
But measuring a global infinity loop sounds literally impossible. How does ScoreDS actually quantify performance across all those interconnected processes?
It breaks performance down into 3 foundational categories of attributes: resilience, economic, and sustainability.
Okay, let's dig into the mechanisms of those. Because it's not just about tracking numbers, it's about tracking actual capabilities. Under resilience, the model measures reliability, responsiveness, and agility.
Right. So reliability is asking, did you deliver the perfect order, the right product, in the right quantity at the right time?
Got it.
Responsiveness measures your speed, your cycle time metrics. How fast does an order actually move through your system? And agility is the mechanism that allows a company to pivot.
Like responding to market changes.
Exactly. By understanding exactly how long your cycle times are, you know how quickly your supply chain can react to a sudden market shock or some external disruption without losing your competitive advantage.
Okay, then we have the economic attributes. This is where we look at costs, assets, and profits, specifically earnings before interest and taxes, or EBIT, which is really just a fancy way of saying your core operating profit before the government or the banks take their cut.
Exactly. And finally, a category that is honestly no longer optional for major corporations: sustainability.
Right.
Tracking environmental metrics like waste, water consumption, and greenhouse gas emissions, alongside social metrics like workforce diversity and the number of training hours provided.
I mean, that is a staggering amount of data to keep track of.
It is.
But if I'm a CEO and my dashboard tells me my responsiveness cycle time is, let's say, 6 days, what good is that number if I don't know if 6 days is actually competitive in my industry?
And that is exactly where the power of benchmarking comes into play. The SCORE framework utilizes a tool called ScoreMark. It allows an organization to anonymously plug their metrics into a massive database of over 1,000 organizations.
Oh, wow.
Comparing against 2,000 distinct supply chains.
So they essentially grade you on a curve against the rest of the world.
Yes. If your cycle time falls in the top 50% of competitors, you are considered to be at parity. If you hit the top 70%, you have an advantage. And if you reach the top 90%, your operations are deemed superior for that specific attribute.
But what happens when you aren't superior? What happens when a metric just drops? Because if I'm looking at a giant double infinity loop, finding the root cause of a delay seems like looking for a needle in a haystack.
It would be, but to solve that, SAR-DS uses a KPI tree structure.
A tree structure.
Yeah, it's essentially a diagnostic map. Level 1 metrics are the big overarching numbers. Level 2 metrics break those down into sub-processes, and Level 3 gets into granular functional tasks.
Okay, so if my level 1 metric, say, perfect customer order fulfillment suddenly tanks, I don't just sit around guessing why, I just follow the branches of the tree.
Exactly. You look at Level 2 and you see that your delivery performance to original commit date failed. That narrows it down. Then you drill down to Level 3 and discover that customer commit date achievement was the specific point of failure. The tree structure diagnoses exactly which branch of your supply network is sick.
And from there, a company can implement custom level 4 metrics, right? which is where they might bring in specific operational improvement methodologies like, say, Lean to eliminate waste or Six Sigma to systematically remove defects from that specific failing branch.
Right. Level 1 to 3 are standard, but level 4 is custom to the company. It takes all the guesswork out of continuous improvement.
This level of visibility is just incredible. We've gone from the internal balance of the scorecard to the overarching network framework of ScoreDS, but this brings up a massive reality check question for me.
Okay, lay it on me.
Putting a measurement system in place is one thing. Actually, being a mature, functional supply chain is entirely different. How does an organization know if they are actually good at any of this?
Well, they have to honestly diagnose their supply chain maturity level. That's how they prove if their metrics are actually driving real-world capability.
So for you listening, think about your own workplace right now. As we walk through these 5 stages of maturity, be brutally honest with yourself about where your company currently sits.
It can be a tough pill to swallow. At the very bottom is stage 1, bluntly referred to as multiple dysfunction.
Ouch.
Yeah, this is a reactive, chaotic environment. Departments have their own internal definitions of success. There are no clear flows, no real partnerships, and information is completely disjointed.
Yeah. If you're stuck in stage 1 living in multiple dysfunction, the balanced scorecard we talked about earlier probably sounds like a total fairy tale.
Oh, absolutely. Moving up to stage 2, we have the semi-functional enterprise. Information flow has slightly improved, but functional areas are still working sequentially. They basically just throw tasks over the wall to the next department without true collaboration.
Still pretty siloed.
Very. The major leap happens at stage 3, the integrated enterprise. This is where a company finally establishes cross-functional integration. The mechanism driving this is usually enterprise resource planning or ERP software.
An ERP is essentially a giant centralized nervous system for the company's data, right?
It is. It means everyone, finance, operations, sales, is finally looking at the exact same numbers in real time.
Got it. And stage 4 is the extended enterprise. This is where you finally look outside your own 4 walls. You take at least one major business process and deeply integrate it beyond the organization, like with a key supplier or a major customer.
And then you reach the absolute pinnacle stage 5, the orchestrated supply chain. This involves a true digital transformation. Secure, networked information flows seamlessly end-to-end across that entire double infinity loop we talked about. The company is actively identifying visibility gaps and closing them in real time.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because I hear terms like orchestrated digital transformation, and my consultant buzzword alarm just starts ringing off the hook.
I get that a lot.
Is stage 5 an actual achievable reality for companies, or is it just a thematical buzzword that looks good on a PowerPoint slide?
No, stage 5 is very real. It's the peak of competitive advantage. But achieving it requires 2 distinct pillars: powerful, data-driven technology and culturally change-ready people. And we don't have to rely on buzzwords to prove it exists. We can prove a company has reached stage 5 using cold, hard financial ratios.
Ratio analysis, meaning relating one financial value to another to enable a common size comparison, regardless of what industry you're in.
Right. And the ultimate test of these metrics, the definitive proof that a stage 5 supply chain is functioning at an elite, orchestrated level, is found in a specific formula called the cash-to-cash cycle time.
This formula is brilliant because of what it reveals. The cash-to-cash cycle time equals days inventory outstanding plus days sales outstanding minus days payables outstanding. Let's translate that into plain English for a second.
Sure. Days inventory outstanding is simply how many days it takes you to sell the product that's just sitting in your warehouse. Days sales outstanding is how long it takes your customers to actually hand over the money for that product once they buy it. You add those 2 numbers together, that total represents how long your cash is trapped.
So your money is either physically trapped in boxes on a shelf or financially trapped in an unpaid invoice.
Exactly. But then the formula subtracts days payables outstanding. That is the amount of time your suppliers give you to pay them for the raw material.
Okay, so let's map this onto like a dysfunctional stage 1 company. Say my inventory sits in the warehouse for 60 days. Then my customers take another 30 days to pay me. That's 90 days my cash is totally trapped. But my suppliers demand I pay them in just 15 days.
Ooh.
My cash-to-cash cycle is 75 days. I am bleeding cash for over 2 months, frantically trying to fund my operations while I wait for that cycle to complete.
It's a nightmare scenario for any finance team. But an orchestrated stage 5 company turns this formula into a strategic weapon.
Yeah.
Because their physical processes are flawless and their digital networks are perfectly integrated, they move inventory incredibly fast. Their digital systems automatically collect customer payments almost immediately, so their inventory and sales days are tiny.
Right. And because they are such massive, reliable, integrated partners, they have the leverage to negotiate incredibly long, maybe 90-day payment terms with their own suppliers.
Which means a Stage 5 company can actually achieve a negative cash-to-cash cycle time.
Wait, really? A negative cycle time?
Yes. They collect the cash from the end customer weeks or even months before they actually have to pay their supplier for the raw materials.
That means they are essentially funding their own daily operations using their suppliers' money. They don't even need massive bank loans to operate.
Exactly. That is not a buzzword. That is absolute, measurable financial dominance.
That is mind-blowing. When the strategic metrics align perfectly with the operational reality, the business practically fuels itself.
It validates the entire premise. Measuring the right things in the right way transforms an organization from a chaotic, reactive entity into a self-funding powerhouse.
What an incredible journey we've taken today. We started in that chaotic trap of driving at 80 miles an hour with 500 blinking lights, where operations and finance are literally sabotaging each other. We learned how to filter the noise by defining smart KPIs and balancing them using the 4 competing lenses of the balanced scorecard. Then we zoomed out past the company walls to the entire global network using the Sutter's ES framework.
The double infinity.
Yes. And finally, we diagnosed organizational maturity, proving that when you achieve true digital orchestration, you unlock financial fluidity like a negative cash-to-cash cycle.
It really all comes down to translating a framed vision into real operational visibility.
It really does. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Something that really struck me about that double infinity model from ScoreDS.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If supply networks are truly these continuous, never-ending circular loops encompassing material returns, environmental regeneration, and total sustainability, does the concept of an end consumer even exist anymore?
Oh, wow. That is a really profound way to look at modern commerce.
Right. If the loop never actually ends, maybe we aren't consumers in the traditional sense at all. Maybe all of us, the massive global corporations and the everyday shoppers picking up groceries alike, are really just temporary custodians of materials that are continually moving through a perpetual circular economy.
I love that.
Think about that the next time you order a package. We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Tomorrow, when you walk into work, take a hard look at the blinking dashboard lights of your own organization. Hopefully you'll see them a little differently now.